What's up, fellow Godzilla nerds? My name is GodzillaGlenn, and today we have all the builds here in Series 4, all 10 builds, and today we are going to be looking at some size comparisons between them. We're going to see who's the biggest build, who's the smallest, we're going to see if they're movie accurate, or if their LEGO counterparts are a bit too big or too small. So, let's get into the in-depth look of size comparisons between the builds of Series 4. So, here we have the first 5 builds of Series 4. We start off the list with Zilla, then we have Kamacuras, and then we have Kumanga. Next is Jet Jaguar, and then the 5th build was Megaguirus. First, we're going to take a quick look at Kamacuras and Kumanga. So, they're from the movie Son of Godzilla, and they appear on the island as giant radioactive insects. And it seems that Kumanga should be maybe around twice the size as the Kamacuras, because they're not even as tall as Godzilla, but they are taller than Minya, so that's something to take into consideration. So overall, these two size pretty good. They seem to be almost about the same size, which is not movie accurate. But in terms of LEGO, these guys are both pretty good size to have enough details, just like all of Kumanga's yellow spots, Kamacuras' talons, and his legs, and his big bug eyes, and all of Kumanga's eyes. So I think they are fairly good sized, but in terms of accuracy, no, it does not look like these two builds are very accurate in size. Next, we're going to be taking a look at the other 3 builds in the first half of the series. So here we have Zilla and Jet Jaguar. And Jet Jaguar seems to be a lot taller than Zilla here. I mean, they were not in the same films, but Jet Jaguar was about the same size as the Godzilla in Godzilla vs. Megalon. And, no, it does not look like they come close to the same size, but in Godzilla Final Wars, it looks like Zilla was a little bit smaller than Godzilla, especially since he was all hunched over, kind of like this. So it does seem pretty accurate that he would be about Jet Jaguar's chest. And then taking a look back here, we have Megaguirus, and compared to these two builds, I think Megaguirus is about the right size. He's not necessarily bigger than Jet Jaguar, and not necessarily taller than Zilla over here, but in Godzilla vs. Megaguirus, it seems like Megaguirus was just a giant dragonfly monster, and he was about maybe half of Godzilla's actual height, but his wingspan was definitely much bigger, which is seen in this build as the wingspan is very large. So overall, I'd say these guys are pretty movie accurate in size. So here we have the next 5 builds in Series 4. These guys were the final 5 builds in the series, and we started off with Megalon, then we moved on to Mogira, then we moved all the way to the Millennium series with Kiryu, and then we went with Monster X, and then we finished the series off with Kaiser Ghidorah. So let's take a look at these guys more in depth. The obvious comparison we probably all wanted to see is how Kaiser Ghidorah fares with Monster X, and I think they are both pretty accurate in size to each other. When Monster X turns into Kaiser Ghidorah, it looks like he keeps his overall head shape. And yeah, I'd say their heads are fairly the same size, except Monster X has a little bit more armor coating him. But, you know, when his head grows, I'm pretty sure that all kind of diffuses. So, yeah, and it looks like Kaiser Ghidorah is an evolved form of Monster X, so I think these builds very accurately depict that, since he is much bigger than his counterpart, but it doesn't look too out of proportion of how big he is. Kaiser Ghidorah doesn't have too large wings. I don't think he can fly like King Ghidorah or any other adaptations of that character before, so his wings are a little smaller. And yeah, I think these two size very well together, and if you build them, they will be a great shelf piece. Taking another look at Monster X, we have him with Kiryu and we have him with Megalon, and it looks like Megalon and Kiryu are a lot bigger than Monster X. And assuming that Monster X is a very big foe of Godzilla, I don't know how accurate this is that Mechagodzilla, or I mean Kiryu, I mean whatever you want to call him, and Megalon seem to be bigger than Monster X. And I don't know how accurate that is. Monster X could be a little smaller, but in Godzilla Final Wars, he was the same size as Godzilla and much bigger as Kaiser Ghidorah. So Kaiser Ghidorah seems to be much bigger than all of these guys, and he does compare in size a little bit better, but it seems when you put Monster X in the picture, he looks much more smaller and a bit more weaker compared to the kaiju Kiryu and Megalon. So I'm not sure how accurate that is, but to me it seems like Monster X should be at least the same size as Kiryu, which is not the case in his LEGO form. So I deem this as not movie accurate in size. Now we're going to be taking a look at the two G-Force robots, Mogira and Kiryu. So it looks like these size comparisons are pretty similar. They seem to be almost about the same size. Kiryu seems to be a bit bigger, but in terms of G-Force robots that fight against Godzilla, these guys seem to be pretty similar in size and scale, especially since Mogira was built from some of the parts from Super Mechagodzilla, I'm pretty sure, or it was Mecha King Ghidorah. I'll have to fact check that. But yeah, these two are very similar in size, and even though they aren't from the same era of movies, I have a feeling that Kiryu takes some inspiration from Super Mechagodzilla, which was also probably the same size as Mogira. So I think these two in size are movie accurate. Now let's move on to a certain era of movies, and we're going to be taking a look at the Showa era builds from this series, and the main one I want to look at are Jet Jaguar and Megalon. And in the movie they seem to be maybe about the same size. I think Megalon was a bit different, but the sizing does seem a bit off since Megalon's head seems to be a lot larger than Jet Jaguar, almost looking kind of like a bolt-on alien, you know, from Ultraman. And I don't know how accurate his size is. Like, again, I know Megalon seems to be a little bit bigger than Jet Jaguar, but in this case, I don't think those two are movie accurate. And then in comparisons with Kumanga and Kamacuras, Kamacuras is always kind of smaller, and assuming that Megalon and Godzilla are about the same size, it doesn't look like Kamacuras is movie accurate compared to them. But Kumanga is movie accurate, as he is about up to Godzilla's waist, and he is just a very large looking kaiju. So let's move on to the Millennium series, since Mogira is the only Heisei build in this series. So here we are with all of our Millennium series builds. I'll go over this one briefly since we already talked about this. We know that Kiryu seems to be one of the bigger ones, as well as Kaiser Ghidorah, which is accurate because they are the bigger ones, except Monster X should be about the same size as Kiryu or bigger. Megaguirus seems to be the correct size, especially that he scales up with Kiryu, who is about the same size as Godzilla, and those battle comparisons seem to be pretty accurate. And comparing him to Zilla, that also seems to be the case, since Godzilla is about twice the size of Zilla from that movie, and Zilla would have to probably look up to him, and he jumps at him, so he'd probably have to do that if he was half the size of him. So overall, these builds are pretty movie accurate in terms of size, except for Monster X, who should be a little bit bigger. So now for some group comparisons, we have the insect kaijus with Kamacuras, Megalon, Megaguirus, and Kumanga. Then we have some cybernetic kaiju with the robots Kiryu, Jet Jaguar, and Mogira. And finally, here are the builds based off of the Final Wars kaiju, because Series 4 was entitled Final Wars, if you guys saw some of the teasers and the trailers. And we have Kamacuras, who is not based off of the design in Final Wars, but he was in that movie. Kaiser Ghidorah, Zilla, Kumanga, who was mostly based off of the Final Wars Kumanga design, but he was also influenced by his design in Son of Godzilla, and then Monster X. So the award for tallest LEGO builds in Series 4 go to Kaiser Ghidorah, because he is a Ghidorah. Those are usually the biggest builds in my LEGO Godzilla series, since King Ghidorah is a really big character and three-headed monster, and so he's very, very big. He walks on 4 feet. He has 3 heads. And then I also put Kiryu, because he is a very tall build and almost matches up with the height of Kaiser Ghidorah, so I had to stick him on there as well. The award for smallest build goes to Kamacuras and Megaguirus. Megaguirus is probably the smallest build in this series, and even though his wingspan is very large, he still is kind of a small insect kaiju. Well, large compared to all of us, but in terms of the other monsters in the series, he does seem to be a bit smaller. And Kamacuras, he is another very small kaiju in the movies, and it does seem that he is also a very small and simple build. Thank you guys so much for watching this little comparison builds. I know that in the early days of how to build Godzilla videos, the comparisons were built into the videos, but I thought we should pay respect to that old tradition and kind of look at the comparisons between the builds here. So if I missed any comparisons you want to see, please comment them, and I will respond to your comment, and I will say who's bigger, who's smaller, and in-depth size comparisons if you actually want them. And please stay tuned to the channel. I got some more upcoming videos coming up next month, and I'll see you guys later. Bye!